In my last video, I responded to a question that goes right to the heart of this whole challenge of raising bilingual kids. How much effort is enough to raise a bilingual child? If you have any doubts about your own efforts, if your efforts are really sufficient to produce the bilingual success you're seeking, I urge you to watch that video. And in that video, which began a new series of Q&A about raising bilingual kids, I encouraged viewers to ask any questions they might have in a comment below. So today I'd like to respond to one of those questions. And the question is, how do you implement OPAL, the one parent, one language approach, in a family where only one parent speaks the minority language? How do you speak in family situations where both parents are present? Honestly, this is another tough question to answer because it's so broad and because so much depends on the specifics of each family. But I'll share my response and I hope it can be helpful to parents in this situation, which is actually quite common. And let me stress that I don't consider my response to any question to be the right answer, especially since families differ so widely. At the same time, as a teacher and a parent, I've been thinking and writing about the practical experience of raising bilingual kids for more than 25 years. So my perspective might offer some useful food for thought for your own thinking. I'm Adam Beck, and this is Bilingual Super Kids, the channel that can help you maximize your success and your joy raising bilingual or multilingual kids. So again, here's the question. How do you implement OPAL in a family where only one parent speaks the minority language? How do you speak in family situations where both parents are present? Like last time, I challenge you to first think about how you would respond. I suggest even pausing this video to reflect on your own thinking before continuing with my response. You see, when you force yourself to articulate what you think, and especially when you try to put your thoughts down in writing, like when you're keeping a journal, you can clarify and stretch your ideas. To me, that's the immense value of writing out my thoughts about raising bilingual kids. So here's my response. I'm reading it directly from what I wrote in the comment section below that video. This is a crucial question for many OPAL families, though the answer can vary depending on the actual circumstances. For instance, with my family, I was fortunate in that my wife has some passive ability in our minority language, which meant that I could generally stay in this language when both my kids and my wife were present. I stayed in the minority language and she stayed in the majority language, yet we could mostly understand each other. I realize, though, that it's far more common for OPAL families to face a situation where the majority language parent has no real ability in the minority language. This makes things more challenging, but to promote the minority language most effectively, I strongly recommend that the minority language parent use the minority language consistently with the child and then switch to the majority language when communicating with the partner. I know this can feel less than ideal, that the family could communicate more freely and enjoyably as a unit if the minority language parent would simply use the majority language too. But then we need to reflect on the deeper question that drives your actions. How important is your bilingual aim? The hard truth is, in this sort of scenario, a lack of consistency on the part of the minority language parent will most likely lower the odds of success. Why? Because the two core conditions for success are ample exposure in the target language and a perceived need to use it. When the minority language parent uses the majority language liberally with the child, this undercuts both of these conditions. There will be less exposure to the target language and less need for the child to actively use it when he or she begins to speak. To me, perhaps the best way to balance these competing forces is by mindfully and proactively staying in the minority language with the child, always, through at least the first few formative years, until this language has developed a firm and active foundation. And then at that point, the minority language parent may be able to use the majority language somewhat more freely without this being the same threat to the minority language that it would have been earlier. But it really depends on the circumstances at that time. In other words, if we take a longer view of the child's development in the minority language, I'm suggesting that it might be best to first ensure that we're meeting the two core conditions for bilingual success as effectively as we can and producing the kind of results we seek before engaging more freely in the use of the majority language within the family. Yes, this entails some sacrifice from both parents, and the majority language parent will need to be very understanding, particularly when it comes to not comprehending much of the communication that goes on in the minority language. But what would the alternative be? Is there a better way to balance these twin desires for language development and family communication without undermining the bilingual aim? Especially given the fact that the early window of time, those first few years of language development, are often so crucial to bilingual success over the years that follow. So basically, I think it might help to take a longer view of both the child's language development and the family's use of the two languages by recognizing that the child's early language development is a kind of biological priority, and that consistency in using the minority language is key to a successful outcome. I'm not saying that the communication within the family isn't important. Of course it's important. But if parents take a broader view of their bilingual journey, and they keep in mind that this dynamic can continue to evolve over time, maybe they can handle both the child's language development and their communication as a family more patiently and more effectively. If you have any questions about raising bilingual kids, questions about your family, questions about my family, or questions in general, feel free to ask them in a comment below. And please tell me your name too, just your first name is fine, along with your location. For example, Adam in Japan, originally from the US. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please like it before you leave. And when you're out in the world, please share this channel with other families who might benefit from these videos too. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you again soon at Bilingual Super Kids.